Will Tinubu's government ban social media? Today, we're going to be talking about some of the highlights from the 2023 elections with Laila Johnson-Salami, journalist and reporter at Arise News. You're watching The Voice of the Youth, a podcast about the political landscape in Nigeria. I'm your host, Kenim O. Guys, please, I'm being objective here. These are not my views necessarily. Some of them are my views, some of them are not, but I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm just really trying to let you guys see this from an objective positioning as opposed to a subjective one. All right, let's get into the video. Laila, how are you?
Hey, Kenim, I am great as I can be. How are you?
I'm great. Nice to have you on. I want to get right into it. You know, this election has been quite melodramatic, quite entertaining. What are some highlights that have happened for you over the course of the past, I would say probably since the elections?
Well, it's been a whirlwind of a period, let's put it that way, especially as a journalist covering elections that also have very deep and emotional meanings for a lot of people across the country. You know, this is the first time for a lot of us that in our lifetimes we saw a viable third force coming through in elections that could possibly win these elections. And that gave a lot of people hope, not because everyone supported the third force, but just the idea that our elections don't have to be so much of a two-horse race all the time. I think that gave a lot of people hope. There's been so much going on. Of course, we experienced and witnessed so much electoral violence around these elections. The 2023 elections, some people are saying, are the least credible elections that Nigeria has ever had. But we know throughout our electoral history that we've had issues when it comes to elections.
So this is like my main point of contention when people make those claims. I mean, you look at, historically at some documentaries, even with Obasanjo, who was very vocal about the fraud in this election, he was also accused in his day of that.
Obasanjo's opponent was former finance minister Falaye, who called Obasanjo a soldier in civilian disguise. Falaye has disputed the fairness of the vote and said he would fight it constitutionally, legally, and politically.
Well, I'm afraid there's been no election. What has happened is a farce, because the will of the people has been subverted by large-scale and massive rigging of the vote.
The balloting and counting was under scrutiny from international and American election observers, including former President Jimmy Carter. In a statement issued as he was leaving Abuja, Carter said there was a wide disparity between the number of voters observed at the polling stations and the final result that has been reported from several states. He went on to say, regrettably, it is not possible for us to make an accurate judgment about the outcome of the presidential election.
I don't necessarily agree that this is the least credible election, because I think now we just have technology which makes things more visible than it was before. If anything, I could almost agree with the claim that this is the most credible election, because before we didn't know. We didn't know exactly what was going on, but we have seen footage of people in rooms, thumbprinting. We've seen all sorts of things in previous elections, which was it was impossible to do in this election, right? So yeah. What's your take?
Well, I mean, you do have a point there, because obviously past elections had lacked as much technology as we're seeing or we saw in the 2023 elections. But then again, you go based on what you know, right, and the evidence that's right in front of you. And I think what gave many people hope for these elections was the fact that the Independent National Electoral Commission had come out to say, these elections are going to be free and fair. We have this technology that we've tried and tested. It wasn't the first time that BVAS was being used. This system had been deployed to state elections to test it out before bringing it onto the national scale. And all of these issues that occurred were issues that were supposed to have been dealt with prior to these elections, yet we saw them coming up. And, when you have technology that can upload results for one part of the elections, being the senatorial and the House of Representative elections, but can't upload those same results for the presidential elections, then you do start to ask questions, because technology gives you little room for error, or should give you little room for error, yet there was such a wide margin of error in these elections. So in some way, even though, yes, past elections have not been free and fair and we didn't have the technology there. So there's so much that, just got swept under the carpet. Even Obasanjo's days, 2003, 2007, there's so much that was swept under the carpet. But I think it's the fact that now you have
visibility.
Technology, so much visibility. You're looking at IREV and you're seeing results with Tipex put on them. Meanwhile, you're standing at your polling unit and you saw the votes that were counted. So in your head, you're thinking do they take me for a fool? You know what I mean? So
if you notice, can you go back to that? If you notice, there is a signature here, but this has been altered. You see, the signature originally was for 67. Now Tipex has been used to cover this 6. A 0 has been added, and now you see 7. You look at the APC, originally it was 20. Or 22, most likely. 20 or something, right? And then now you see the Tipex here, a 1 has been added, and now it's 120. So the signatures are there, but these results have been tampered with and then uploaded. And there's so many instances of this.
I'm announcing a new initiative, working with Congress to invest $350 billion to facilitate more than almost $500 million in financing to make sure people across Africa can participate in the digital economy.
You're about to hear something that the Nigerian government does not want you to know. Attention all entrepreneurs and business owners, whether you are in Nigeria or the US or even the UK. These days, it's hard to access capital for your business. Well, I have some incredible news for you. Money is everywhere. Did you know that the US government, the Chinese, Europeans, and even the World Bank have all promised to invest trillions of dollars in Africa?
At the G7 meeting earlier this year, we announced our intention to collectively mobilize $600 billion.
And Nigeria is key in this investment wave. But where is all the money going? And more importantly, how can you get involved? You might think it's going straight to the Nigerian government, and I don't blame you. Most of us think that. But the truth is, there is a way for you, yes you, to access this money too. At Business in Nigeria, we provide you with the tools and insider knowledge necessary to access these funding opportunities. Our program gives you exclusive access to help you navigate the complex world of business finance in Nigeria. You'll also receive weekly webinars on capital accessibility, details on running businesses in high-yielding sectors in Nigeria, and financial literacy fundamentals. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to tap into these monetary support options and take your business to the next level. Head over to streamovg.com/business in Nigeria to find out more and sign up today for our program. With our help, you can access the funding that you need to take your business to new heights.
Because when Africa succeeds, the United States succeeds. Quite frankly, the whole world succeeds as well.
Here's the thing. I hear you, and I agree to some degree, but I think that if anything, we should look at this as an opportunity, that we have this ability to now spot the errors. I think it's almost like people are waking up now. People are awake because they have the visibility. But before, this is why I kind of lost hope on, Nigeria's population when it comes to elections, because people were just so ignorant to the systems and the corruption in the past that and they sort of just their votes were easily bought, right? And because I did a documentary in 2019 covering the election, I even worked on Goodluck's campaign in 2015. So I've been watching sort of electoral college or elections culture around, how people behave and interact with the elections. And to me, I just thought like I just lost hope in Nigeria before because I was like, people are just so ignorant. People are just so willing to, take on whatever anyone says and believe it without any sort of like due diligence. And I think to me, what is beneficial about this process now is that we can actually watch what is really happening and actually now pinpoint the areas of either error, I would put it that way. And if anything, I could align with that. This is probably the freest election we've ever had. But you could even argue that, look at the U.S. People are still arguing about whether that was a free election, right?
There you go. These are issues that they're not unique to Nigeria. You know what I mean? These are issues that go on everywhere when it comes to elections. But the reason I would say that these elections were far from free and fair is because you can't stop people from voting, intimidate people into voting for other people, even if it's just one person. If as citizens over the age of 18, you have the right to vote, you have the right to go out on election day, you have the right to place your vote and vote for whoever you want to vote for. And if you're being stopped from doing that because of political influences here and there that are trying to sway votes in their direction, then we have a huge issue. And it gets worse when all of this is right in your face. We're in an era where social media is so widespread. You're getting information literally on the go. Every second of the day, we're getting more video and another video. So you're seeing all of this and it's happening to you so blatantly in front of your face. There were people who went to polling units on voting day and they were literally told, if you are Igbo, you cannot vote here. And even Yoruba people that they said looked Igbo because they were light-skinned could not vote. So I'm thinking, so what's going on now? You know what I mean? And this is where it's concerning because now what sort of a divide are we creating in Nigeria, as a country that's still healing, still on that healing path, a new democracy. We've been on a steady run since 1999. We don't want democracy interrupted in Nigeria, but when you have processes that what's the word I'm looking for here? When you have processes that undermine democracy, it does become very concerning. And
so I guess what my main point is, and I'm just looking at this very objectively, and I'm looking at it almost like objectively from the human race. I'm not looking at it as a person. I'm just looking at it like this, right? Yeah, we have more visibility to see this voter suppression, but it existed before, and I would even argue that even worse before, right? And that doesn't justify it. That doesn't make it okay. It just lets us know what areas that we should fix moving into the future.
But, that's where it gets tiring, right? Because like you said, you've been working on elections for years. You've seen these processes for years. And a lot of us are hopeful that, it's going to get better. How can we improve it? So what did they do? They updated the Electoral Act. They came through with technology and said, we're going to implement this. So you make these changes and then you still see no change in how elections are handled. Then it becomes a problem because then it makes you years.
Well, for me, it makes you fight again. I will give you an example with the U.S., right? We had Obama come into office, right, from 2008. After Obama, we thought racism doesn't exist in America. Oh my God. Then what did Obama create? Donald Trump, the people argued. And so we now started seeing all the rats come out of the kitchen, right? You start seeing all the rats coming out of the kitchen, and now you know exactly where they are, so you can, exterminate them, right? So that's the point that I'm saying. Like, yes, it's disheartening. Yes, it's discouraging. But this process is going to take 100 years. Even when you look at... Right. So this process, like when you look at the British, people look to America, people look to the UK, and I just get so confused because even the lobbying in America, that's corruption, right? And America or even the UK, they only got out of the system of corruption that we're seeing in Nigeria. They only got out of it 100 years ago.
And that's the thing. It's not going to be a process that happens overnight, right? And I agree with you on that. The comparisons to countries like the US and America.
Because Nigeria loves to bring America and the U.S. so that's why I'm just saying, look at that as an example, right?
Yeah, but
it's a mess.
You can still draw like negative parallels, right? So Donald Trump ran in 2016 and there was always so much racism in America, but somehow it was managed. It was, under the carpet in a way. But you have someone who runs and who gives you the power to feel as though these thoughts and these beliefs that you have are okay, and everything comes up above the surface. And I think that's the same thing that's happened with 2023 elections in Nigeria. But with
what I'm saying.
You've had all of this deep tribalism that's been under the carpet for all this time, but then you have people that give others the courage to come forward with those views, negative and very disturbing views. And all of a sudden you create a problem that can be bigger than you if you're not careful. We've seen it before. We've seen it in Rwanda, for example. We've seen it here in Nigeria with our own civil war.
To be honest, I think when I look at social media, the consensus is people are against it, right?
Yeah.
And I think social media is a microcosm of the entire population and the views of the population, right? So if anything, I know it's not good. It's not a good thing, right? It's not a good thing to see these nasty. No one wants a rat in their kitchen. Nobody wants to see that. But at least you know there's a rat in your kitchen and you know what to do next, right? I guess people might feel they don't know what to do next, but I guess what I just have to say is keep trying. Keep focusing on improving the systems. I think that this has just been such an incredible process that we know exactly where to look. And before we didn't know that.
So yes, to one extent, but at the same time, Nigeria is a country of struggle and a country of stress. And a lot of people, when they get hope, to lose that hope, they feel as though they've lost everything, and just
I understand that
to keep on keeping on,
yeah,
is something that a lot of people don't have, and to some extent it's also understandable. And I think the issue is that a process that was supposed to move us forward, even if it wasn't perfect, a process that was supposed to move us forward by a few years has taken us back, or many feel has taken us back by several years. And I think it's that feeling of regression that's getting to people. And yes, you shouldn't lose hope. Yes, you shouldn't give up. And it's great to know exactly where the rats are in your closet. But when you feel as though the rats are an entire establishment that will not let you carry out your rights and put your voice forward, it gets a bit more concerning, because what does that mean for Nigeria going forward? If we're going to stop people from voting the way they want to vote, if we're going to manipulate votes, and if we're going to play around with the electoral system in that way, when we've already come this far, how far back does that take us? And what does that mean going into the next elections?
I think, okay, so here's the thing. One thing I think that is clear is that the electoral process is here to stay. Well, we'll talk about that in a bit, but I think what I'm hearing, people that are in power fought for democracy, right? So it's here to stay, right? And I just see it as, again, Donald Trump got he won the presidency. He had 4 years. They kicked him out. Now they're trying to put him in jail to make sure that this man does not have any opportunity to come back, right? So I'm saying, if you really don't like it, I'm not saying wait, but I'm saying, we need to exercise patience. And unfortunately, it's easy for me to say, I get it. I'm in America right now. There's lights. I don't have to worry about, I don't have to worry about basic amenities and all that stuff. And I understand why it's easy to be myopic in Nigeria. You don't have a choice, right? And so that's why so many people are fighting that, Japa is a thing. But I look at world history, and I look at, this is what's happening right now in Nigeria is very similar to what happened in the Mayan Empire. And because the wealthy, the elite, or the 1% suppressed and abused the average people, the middle class and below, they started migrating out. Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm seeing in Nigeria, right? People are just migrating out. It was called the Great Migration. Not that it's easy to migrate in this day and age either. But I think regardless, I think people need to exercise patience, and they need to follow the due process, do what they can, because everybody has a different role to play, right? Everybody has a different role to play. So play your role in making the change that you want to see. Just as even Tinubu did, people will argue that he did exactly the same thing. He didn't like what he saw when he was younger, so he fought to get all the way to presidency, right? To shape the Nigeria that he wants to see. Whether you like it or not, that's him. But I'm saying you shape the Nigeria that you want to see is what I'm trying to say, right?
Absolutely. And, like you said, there's processes to everything. But again, it's just about how things are handled and how things are dealt with. And Nigeria is a very fragile country. We are, already dealing with so many issues when it comes to insecurity, when it comes to ethnic and religious division. And sometimes you don't need to add more pepper to the soup, for lack of a better expression. You know what I mean? And I feel as though what these elections have done has not only taken away hope from people, but has also opened people's eyes up to the reality of the country that we're living in. And yes, you have to follow due process, which is why, for example, Peter Obi and the Labour Party are currently taking this to court. They filed a petition at the Presidential Elections Tribunal. And it's a very detailed petition that they're going into with several reasons why they believe that Bola Ahmed Tinubu could not be declared the rightful winner of the 2023 elections. Now, where this court case ends up is something that we just have to wait and see. But Nigerians have to also be prepared to go through a court case for many years. This may not be something that happens.
I don't think it's a wait and see situation. I think it's do what you need to do now. Who are you? What position do you sit in? Right? What access do you have? What's your unique vantage point in this planet? And what advantages does it give you to fight for what you believe in? And I'm not saying go on the streets or riot. I'm not saying do anything, that's illegal. But I'm saying start doing what you can now, right?
Absolutely. It's very important because individual approaches to things lead to the overall outcome. So absolutely, I'm with you on that. But again, looking at the realities, Nigeria's unemployment rate right now is over 33%, half of the population is living in absolute poverty. We've gone from, when I was younger, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, Mexico was the kidnapping center of the world. Now, every day you're waking up and in the news, you're seeing that, someone else has been kidnapped, or even on election day, people were getting kidnapped. And there are so many things that have been normalized in Nigeria that are currently making Nigeria so unsafe that the last thing that's needed to add to that is bad elections once more.
Which I agree. And the thing about one thing I will say is the thing about the electoral process is that as much as this is the one thing that you can actually make a change, a visible change, right? This is the one thing that you can that you can make an immediate change, because I think Nigerians are very myopic as a culture. So, and I don't blame them, because look, if you don't have food, you don't have electricity, you don't have basic amenities, of course you're going to be desperate to see the change instantly, right? People are not thinking about the next 10 years when life expectancy is not that long. They're thinking about their lifetime. So yeah, there is change, and the fact that this was taken from you, and the fact that the people that are in power have the power to change even the electoral process, change even, whatever it is, right? But my question, though, to the population is, what are you going to do about it? Because I see a lot of people, complaining online. I see a lot of people, and again, I saw this in 2015 or 2014. I saw this in 2019. But my question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it?
When you want to change the politics of your country, right, they tell you, go out there and vote. More Nigerians were registered to vote in the 2023 elections than ever before.
Yet I had friends that were at the beach on election day. I flew all the way from America to come and vote. But I had friends that were on the beach. I had friends that were, left Nigeria. So, that's why I'm saying, when it comes down to it, I'm sorry. I don't feel sorry for some people. How can only 10% of the population be voting?
But the thing is, I personally, from what I've seen, especially researching this through my career and all of that, the turnout figures just don't necessarily add up. Yes, you have a bunch of Nigerians who, like us, probably have more privilege than the average Nigerian, and it comes to electoral matters, and all of a sudden it's, man, whatever happens, right? I don't really care.
It's not just them. Again, remember, I've made documentaries. I've gone on the streets. I've interviewed basic, average people on the streets. I've gone into their homes. I've done that, and they don't care either. They're even worse.
And what that comes down to is a loss of hope. For example, the lady who comes to braid my hair, she came to braid my hair 3 weeks before the elections, and we were speaking about voting, and she said, I just don't think I'm going to go out and vote on election day because they always steal our votes and our votes never count anyway. They're still going to do whatever they want to do. And you did have that going on. But fact of the matter is, you still had waves and waves of people going out to vote, and the figures did not necessarily add up. And what is that at the end of the day, 9 million people essentially decided in a country of 200 million, that 9 million people decided on the country's next president, right? And that's where it also gets a bit problematic because we've lost so much trust in the system in Nigeria that you have people not going out to vote, and then you have them and you give them validity for not going out to vote when things happen like electoral violence, ballot box snatching, so on and so forth. All they do is sit there on the beach or wherever they are going, well, you see. And this is the problem. In order for us to improve the system, we also have to be able to prove that the system can work for the people. And these elections were the perfect time to do that. And what happened? The same old thing.
But I think I agree with you there. Yeah, I agree with you there. I understand that sentiment. But I think, again, it still allows us to see where the real flaws are. So what is the next process? Okay, we take this to court, right? We look at who is at the unique point of a position of power to create influence. Now, there's a spotlight on the INEC chairman right now, right? That's a position that we need to watch in the future. And now, the next spotlight is the CJN, right? Chief Justice of Nigeria. That's a position that we need to watch. Yeah. These are positions. So I'm just saying, it's giving us, we know exactly where the rats are in the kitchen. We know exactly.
Another thing we need to do, sorry to interrupt you there, we need a proper national population consensus actually carried out. Let's actually know how many people there really are in Nigeria. There are so many issues here, and I agree with
How much did they ask for? They asked for billions of naira to do that. They asked for...
Yeah, I can't remember the exact figure, but yeah, billions. And the thing is, as it stands, if we're being very honest, we actually don't know how many people we have in Nigeria. That's why you have so many investors coming in thinking that the market size is this size, then all of a sudden they don't achieve what they want to, and they're confused. And it's like, well, maybe we need a proper national population consensus carried out again. There are so many issues that we are facing here. And I've said this to even my friends, my colleagues. If we want to change the system, it starts from literally the core of the system. These things that you're talking about, it's not voting is the main thing when it comes to how you influence elections, yes, but there are so many other things that have to be done because clearly the entire system is completely flawed and broken.
Exactly.
For free and fair elections, you have to have a system that's built on a strong foundation, which we currently do not have.
And this is what I'm saying. This is why I'm saying that, like, okay, like we are seeing exactly what we need to pay attention to. What is the process that somebody becomes the INEC chairman? What is the process that somebody becomes the Chief Justice of Nigeria? What is the process? What are the, who is my local government chairman? How can I influence him to represent my constituency? These are the things that people need to be focused on. It's not just let's go and vote, right? It's not just let's go and vote on election day. We have to pay attention and be vigilant to all the areas. And that's where I'm saying I lose. Anyway, but sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, but you're right because even down to not really smaller things, but I was doing research for a report on Nigeria's space progress and how much progress we've made with space technology and the use of space technology in Nigeria. And I realized how many so-called space agencies we just have sitting under the what's it called? The Ministry of, gosh, it's left my head. Sitting under the specific ministry anyway, that are literally just probably not doing anything. Why would you have over 10 space agencies when we haven't even sent one person to space, when we haven't even been able to launch one satellite for ourselves? And when you actually look into the data in Nigeria that's available for the different ministries, departments, and agencies, you realize how much of a problem we really have. There is so much waste going on and so many channels, different channels for corruption and siphoning funds that we're not even looking at and we're not even looking into. And we have to start placing pressure, not just around the times of elections, but pressure on your politicians all through. They're public servants at the end of the day. Clearly, whether you feel it or not, elected by the populace, right? You have to be able to put pressure on these people. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to feel as though they can get away with whatever they want to. But that being said, I think one thing that happened in these elections is definitely going to set the tone for future elections, is that wave of the Labour Party being able to come in and in 9 months' time swoop up the amount of votes that they did sweep up. And according to them, they got even more votes, right? And this is what we're going to find out in courts. And that's what we do have to wait on and see. But things can change. Peter Obi, for example, is one person that has shown that things can change. He's shown that things can change by building up a viable and credible third force in the space of 9 months. Unheard of. Who has done that in Nigeria's history before? If somebody just came and said, I'm no longer running under the APC, I'm going to go run under the SDB and all, like, it's unheard of. Meanwhile, it was done. So progress is happening, but when things mar that progress to the extent where people lose hope, then you get a setback that's very concerning. And when you also have a ruling party that doesn't seem that keen on unifying the people, then you have another party too. I mean, we've had so many inflammatory statements coming out from members of the Tinubu Shesima campaign.
So let's talk about that, because I mean, you know, the other day, or is it yesterday, with Fani Kayode, you know, he had a few outbursts, you know. One of them was attacking the British, someone in the British embassy. I can't remember. Do you know the name of the guy?
Ben Llewellyn-Jones, the deputy.
Right. And so he, like, what is your take on this? Because, you know, I think there's some level of, there's some just to what the British High Commission guy was saying in terms of the fact that why is APC allowing someone like him represent them, right? I think that's problematic. But at the same time, you know, this sort of waving this, you know, we're going to give you sanctions, we're going to prevent your visas, you know, in a country, what just happened with that MP in the UK that, you know, he was collecting checks, or he was accepting a job for so like there's a lot of lobbying that goes on in the UK, right? So there was some things that Fani Kayode said, not everything. I don't support most of what he said in that statement. It was very inflammatory. But there were, at the end of the statement, when he talks about the British Empire and the fact that focus on yourself. They just passed a law in America, in Florida, that allows you to run around with a gun, right? You can walk around with a gun without getting a permit. So focus on yourself, right? That's what he was saying. Okay, so what are your thoughts, on all of this?
So firstly, there is a point there, because I have always found it a bit concerning and disturbing when you see how much Western countries, the UK, EU countries and the US try to meddle in their own way in Nigeria's political affairs. And, you know, there was a statement that a particular British envoy here in Nigeria had on Arise TV before the elections, basically kind of making us sound like naughty kids. You know what I mean? Like, we're not an established country of 200 million people. Like, if you do this, we're going to XYZ. So it does get you a bit like, okay, because it does come across as belittling Nigeria. And it does have that colonial undertone to it that makes us very uncomfortable. But at the same time, to the best of my understanding, what's happened here is the Deputy High Commissioner Ben Llewellyn-Jones had an interview with Nigeria Info FM, a local news radio station here in Nigeria, where he stated that comments from certain members of the Tinubu Shesima campaign have been very inflammatory, and what's disturbing is that the APC and the president-elect have not distanced themselves from these people.
So I agree with that statement. I agree with that statement.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
He then went on to say that they're not going to say exactly who, but they have been issuing visa bans between 5 to 10 visa bans so far, and that the list is still growing. And these visa bans, the extent of how long they last, that's at the discretion of the UK or whatever country issues those visa bans. Now, to me, first of all, I would like to know who you've issued visa bans for and why, because you do get involved in our elections, so let's not make it seem like you don't. So you may as well come out and say that these are the people who we have issued visa bans on, and this is why. But at the same time, back to what I said before, there's a way the statements come out that can sometimes belittle Nigeria. And I remember even after the election results were announced and Peter Obi was speaking, and he literally said something about how, with all due respect to the international community, this is an us problem, not a them problem. And that's kind of the way that I feel. We have to be able to deal with our own issues in Nigeria without always looking out to the international community. The international community, yes, can observe elections. They can come out with observatory reports. In fact, we should be sending observers from Nigeria to the UK while they're fighting for elections.
Right, and also not just elections, but also the way that they treat black people. We should be observing them too, right?
Exactly.
But I think, okay, for me though, the thing about Fani Kayode and his statements, that, when his response, I googled him, I googled his dad. His dad was born in the UK, so I'm just assuming he probably has a British passport. So, all the sort of boldness in his statement, I think it comes from knowing that, look, you can't stop me from going to the UK when I have a British passport. What happened to, freedom of speech, right? This is my assumption. I don't know that that's a fact, but I did Google his father was born in the UK, and I know you automatically get a British passport, especially back then if your parents are born there back then. Yeah. So I don't know, like, to me, yeah, there are issues there. At the end of the day, this, mind your business. And we do need to be able to fix our stuff internally. But at the same time, yes, I'm not going to deny that there's a difficulty. The people that we want, the ways that we want to see change, we believe that the way that we do that is voting. We go and vote, and this is probably the most important, most powerful position, possible. We go and vote, and then, it's clear that our mandate has been stolen or the votes have been stolen, right? There's been corruption. It's clear, right? Yeah. And so then what do you do now? There's this level of hopelessness. There's no and I feel like there's a lack of leadership because and here's where I want to talk about Peter Obi and PDP. I think that they made a big mistake separating their legal case and focusing on themselves. And to me, it just kind of showcases the selfishness of, the way they see this position as it's their mandate. If they united and said, this election, and they focused on it objectively and said, this election was conducted, illegally. They unite, they have more of a case. But they've gone there, they've said, announce me as president. They're saying all these things about themselves, and they're not focusing on the system. And that's where I have an issue with the way they're going about it.
So, I get you, but at the same time, as two separate political parties, I think there's also a level of importance in keeping those cases separate, because sometimes you put two cases together, one case actually has grounds to stand on, another case doesn't really have grounds to stand on, and it waters down the grounds of the first case too. And I think what we're seeing here, first of all, we can even speak about the PDP and what the PDP have done in these elections, because the PDP politically really messed up. First of all, the G5 and all the governors that stepped back because of the decisions made on the vice presidential candidate. Peter Obi left the party. You basically couldn't get your house in order. You went into these elections, and quite frankly, I kind of knew there was very little they were going to be able to achieve.
So this is my point.
Not having their house in order.
Here's my thing. Once you make it objective, it's no longer about PDP and our past crimes as PDP. Because we're not talking about past crimes. We're talking about this election was conducted, quote unquote, illegally. So let us focus on how it's not about what PDP did, whatever did. We're looking at the electoral process. And that's these are the grounds, right? We're actually suing INEC. And what happened to, and I know you're not a lawyer, and I'm going to speak to a lawyer soon, but because I'm wondering, why isn't there, a people's case, the people of Nigeria going against INEC, right? Instead of because now this is Peter Obi's case, this is PDP's case. These are they have personal agendas. When the people of Nigeria have an agenda for the people of Nigeria. So why aren't the people of Nigeria suing INEC? That's where that's what I'm trying to, say.
A people's case actually, to me, sounds like a great idea. And when you do get a lawyer on, I'd be very interested to know what they do say on that particular topic, because I hadn't actually thought of that myself. But what we have here is a case that's been filed by Mr. Peter Gregory Obi and then the Labour Party as well, right? So it's not just him going in on this alone, it's the entire structure of the party too. And then you have Alhaji Atiku Abubakar alongside the People's Democratic Party. I do understand what you're saying. And, you know, I don't know if you recall the day after the election results were announced or the day they were announced, I can't exactly remember when, the PDP, the PDP, the Labour Party and the ADC, and I think a few other political parties did a joint press conference addressing these issues and these matters. And the first thing everyone started saying was, oh, why are they suddenly coming together now? Why are they? And it's like, they're not coming together now, guys. They are addressing an issue in a wholesome way, because this is an issue that's affecting a lot.
All of us.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, look, I you know, people are trolls are going to say what they say. Like, it doesn't matter what everybody says on social media. People are going to say stuff. Like, it doesn't mean that they have any influence in this. But I think, like, the main thing here is they have selfish agendas, and that's going to be ignored. That only, if you ask me, strengthens Tinubu's case. Because now you just look greedy. You just look like you're a sore loser, right? But if you then say the people of Nigeria, you get the people of Nigeria, and then we have as a support Peter Obi and whatever, because they are citizens of Nigeria, then you have a stronger case.
I think it also depends on what evidence they present whenever the trial starts, because, you know, in the petitions it stated that we have evidence for X, Y, and Z. Obviously, that evidence hasn't been put into the petition directly, but it'll be interesting to see what evidence they come out with once this trial starts. Personally, I would disagree that I don't think it necessarily looks personal. I think what's personal is the fact that he ran on behalf of Nigerians, right, who supported his particular campaign, and he believes that a mandate was stolen from him on behalf of Nigerians who, So it would be interesting to see what a lawyer has to say on a people's case, but I think it would have been very difficult to file a people's case also within the time frame that you have to get a petition in, because they didn't have that much time too, and we also have to consider that, you know?
I understand that. Okay, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and at the end of the day, it is really a case of, it's Peter Obi ran, Atiku Abubakar ran, Bola Ahmed Tinubu ran, right? Bola Ahmed Tinubu was declared president-elect by INEC. Obi has a problem with that. Atiku has a problem with that. I'm sure there are other parties who ran and lost and actually don't have a problem with the results that were announced, right? So I think it does have to sort of be approached in that way, but it doesn't mean that there can't be a people's case at the same time. But what's interesting, all eyes are going to be on the Nigerian Supreme Court if this case does get there.
Yeah, and I agree, but I guess I hear you, but I guess we'll just have to maybe agree to disagree, because to me they just look selfish and they look like sore losers. To me, like the way that they are going about it, the way that they're saying that my mandate was stolen. This is not about you. This is about Nigeria. And so if you focus on that, to me, you win a lot more people, and you have a stronger case, if you ask me.
That was kind of said. Dati Baba Ahmed, the vice presidential candidate for the Labour Party, he had an interview on Arise News about a week ago. And he did say that. He said, this is not about me. This is not about Peter Obi. This is about Nigerians. Nigerians ran for these elections through us. The we are just the mediums or vessels. I can't remember.
So if you are the medium and the vessel, represent Nigeria, not yourself. Don't bring up your selfish interest. Don't bring up that I'm the one that won the election, when you have no, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, why position it like that?
Because
it's the way
you don't have, I don't know, I'm not sure, again, if you would have the legal rights to put in a case on behalf of all Nigerians. I think you would only really have the legal right to put in a case on behalf of you if you're the one filing that petition, you know? It's easier said than done to speak on behalf of many people. You do that, and then there's so many other issues that can arise from that. I don't know if you
I hear you, and I guess that's where to speak to a lawyer about which I'll have one on next. Okay, so I want to move on to a statement by Sani Musa. I believe that he's trying to run for or trying to be selected as Senate president. He said we need to regulate the social media space. That's what he said on Arise News. So here's the thing, right? And this is where I think there's there's some fear that's going around, APC taking this position, right? If we, as a people, the people of Nigeria, allow, say an APC to continue in the way that it is believed that they have taken, they have come into power, that almost then gives them, it emboldens them to diminish our rights more. Because if this is the way that you are allowing someone like Fani Kayode speak, now that you're not even in office yet, you're not even in office yet, but you allow someone like Fani Kayode to do that. We look at NSARS. We look at the way that we were gaslit when it was shown, it was, proven in courts that this happened, but we were gaslit during NSARS.
Even after the white paper came out from courts, literally with the indictments in that paper, they still came out to say that people are lying. It doesn't end.
So this is my thing. So if this is the integrity of the party, when they are not even in the position of power, then that begs the question, when they actually are in power,
what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
And this is
what's going to happen.
What people are afraid of, because we're seeing so many things now that are giving us an insight into what a potential clampdown on freedom of speech could look like under a Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. And for many people, that's scary. I mean, we went through a period where they banned Twitter in Nigeria. They brought Twitter back. And it's like, okay, is that what you're going to be doing again? They have this fear for social media because there's a fear of not being able to regulate people speaking out and speaking up and sharing their minds. But it's okay when you come and use social media to put out hate speech, tribalist messages, so on and so forth, things that can be reported and taken down on these platforms. But as soon as people just share their own views that differ from yours, all of a sudden, and there's no hate speech involved, there's no ethnic bigotry, there's none of that, all of a sudden you have an issue. So does that mean that under a Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency, we are not going to have access to freedom of speech that we are enshrined to in the Constitution? These are all of the things that are now very worrying to Nigerians. It's so sad because you even have a lot of Igbos in Lagos who are looking at moving back to the east, saying, I'm not going to put up with this. Igbos who also lived through the Nigeria civil war that have PTSD and are saying, I know how this is going to end. And we're creating so much divide, yet you have the president-elect saying, we need to heal now. How can Nigeria heal when people in your party and people involved directly with your campaign are spreading inflammatory hate messages that affect many Nigerians all over social media, yet somebody who is a Labour Party supporter that's coming out to tweet in support of Peter Obi, that puts out a statement with regards to Governor Soludo, all of a sudden that guy is picked up and arrested and taken to Abuja and nobody knows where he is. So you know that it's very scary, and not just for some Nigerians, it's very scary for everyone living in Nigeria because we don't know what's going to happen.
So here's the thing, right? I think about, and I hear you and I completely understand what you're saying. But we think about when it comes to freedom of speech, yes, it's our amendment right to speak freely, right? And express our thoughts. But social media is not your thoughts being expressed. It's just a tool that is used to express your thoughts. Absolutely. It's just the same way like in the US, they're trying to ban TikTok and people are saying it's against our First Amendment rights. But no, it's just a tool that is used for you to express your thoughts. It's not it's not your actual freedom of thought. So yes, they do have, technically, if they feel as though, if they can prove that, I don't know, whatever it is that they're going to try and prove, they do have the right to take away certain social media platforms, right? It is dangerous. I'm not, by the way, before anyone watches this, I think I'm not supposed to, I'm just playing devil's advocate for you guys to really understand this objectively. But go on.
They have the rights, but at the same time, you have to question why they would want to do that.
That's the question. But it's not. But it's not about why they want. We know why they want to do it. It's the question is how they're going to do it.
Exactly. So right. And then you then ask, is that okay? Because take Twitter, for example. How has Twitter changed the world? Twitter has changed the world in allowing us to receive and put out information pretty much in real time. I remember when I was still at boarding school in the UK. This was like 10 years ago, and there was, I think, armed robbers on the Lekki-Ikoyi bridge. This is when it had just opened or around there. And I knew that my mom took that route home from work every day from Yaba back to Lekki. And I called my mom and I was like, when you're heading home, don't take the Lekki Kogi Bridge because I heard that there's shooting going on around there and blah, 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 blah. She's in Nigeria listening to radio on her way home. She hasn't heard it yet, but she's heard it from me because I found out on Twitter. And I think there's a fear that the government has for access to information and how information can be spread and put out. And if you have that fear and you have that problem, develop your own agency or your own body that can fact check information that's literally on social media going through all of these things. If you really have that issue, don't say to people that the number one medium that you use to express your thoughts and share those thoughts with the world today, because media changes, more people use social media now than they do look at traditional media. You can't force people to going back to flicking a black and white newspaper just because you don't like the fact that social media is more accessible and information can spread quicker and in real time. I think it's a very dangerous move. And yes, it's a tool. It's not necessarily taking away your freedom of expression, and that's what they could try and argue. But when you look at it in the grand scheme and you look at what that platform actually is and how it serves the people, you realize that it's being taken away because the government perceives it as a threat. And for any government to perceive social media or a social media platform like Twitter as a threat, you have to question, why does the government see this as a threat? And when you do start to ask those questions, you realize that it's really not to do with the people. It's more to do with the image of Nigeria that they want out there, that they feel the people are affecting. But if you want the image of Nigeria to change, then Nigeria has to change.
So let's look at Iran, for example, where they shut down the internet. Do you see this happening with a Tinubu presidency?
Oh, it's very possible. If they could do it to us under Muhammadu Buhari.
But that was just Twitter, though. That was just Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? To shut down the internet.
It's very possible. I mean, to be very honest with you, I don't think they would go that far. I don't think they'd do a China on us. I don't think they'd do an Iran on us. But if it was to be done, I wouldn't be surprised. So
here's the thing, though. The thing about the China is, at least in China, they provide their own alternatives.
Yeah.
They provide very, very superior, or not even superior, just equal, equally strong platforms. But then again, I just think about, and I'm just very much into geopolitics, right? And I think about the power that we give the West when we use their own platforms to build, we're giving them so much power. Look at what happened when, Russia invaded Ukraine and they decided that they're going to kick Russians off of all social media platforms and anything that's associated. That is selective, control. We're giving them too much power. So there is an argument, and again, I'm playing devil's advocate. I do not believe in any of these things, but I'm trying to prepare people to know where the rats are. Look, this is what we need to be looking at, right? If this is going to come out, now it's time to strategize. What are we going to do to prevent this from happening? But I'm just pointing this out for you guys to see that there are arguments that can support a social media shutdown. And so the question again is to you, if you're watching this, is what are you going to do about it? That's the question.
So on that as well, that does happen, and that is a negative. And what I would say is we also have to be able to invest in our own platforms and our own tech. And what do you need to do that? You need governments to support that. You need the right ecosystems for that to develop and to be built. And without those ecosystems, we will continue to rely on the traditional messaging and media apps that we've been using that weren't created on the African continent. But when you do see those clampdowns like with Russia, that also comes when there's an entire state issue, right? And they want to be able to target, or a particular country like the States or whatever wants to be able to target another state. With a clampdown in Nigeria, the clampdown is on, the government will be doing that on the people.
But that's what they did with our Naira, with the currency. They basically, CBN basically sanctioned us. We sanctioned ourselves from the global, economic market.
And then as soon as elections are over, they come and say you can continue to use your old Naira notes up until
I'm not even talking about that. I'm not even talking about that. The specific currency change. I'm talking about from 2015.
Yes.
When our Naira started declining, it was for 2014. But I'm talking about from then. That's when CBN clamped. That's why the Naira is so bad now, because you've basically self-sanctioned us.
Yeah, they pegged the Naira, and it's one of the worst policies that's ever happened because we've done so the past 8 years. There's so much that's happened in terms of policy that has set Nigeria back for a very, very long time. And you literally have to just sit and ask, who has been advising the president? Who is actually leading this country? Who's the one who's making all of these decisions? Because some terrible, terrible decisions have been made. And that's one thing that a lot of people have argued. A lot of people have said that no matter what, nothing can be worse than the past 8 years. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
No, it can get worse.
Yeah, I think it can get a lot worse. Exactly.
Yeah,
I think it can get
you're not in a war zone. Like, at the end of the day, you're not in a war zone. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, even when I think it was the day that Tinubu was announced, and what I can't remember what particular indices had shot up, something around investor confidence anyway, that was published on Bloomberg that had shot up. And you realize that there's just been such a lack of trust in Nigeria, both nationally and internationally, over the past 8 years. And yes, it can get worse. But one other question that we can put out there to the public is, how do we all avoid it from getting any worse, you know?
But do you really think that Tinubu is not a good economic plan for Nigeria? I think economically, you know, he's definitely going to be better than Buhari.
I don't know yet, because he would have to come into office and I would need him to have some time in office. But one thing I always say is, one thing that Tinubu campaigned around was, look at what I've done in Lagos, right? Look at how I've built Lagos up. But to me, Lagos is actually very disappointing for what it should and could be, because Lagos...
And what it was, like what it was.
And what it was.
Right.
Like, you know, I hear people speaking about how they could drink tap water in Lagos in the 90s. And you look at now and it's like, and I think Lagos has missed out on so much. So if we're to go by Lagos alone, I don't have that much confidence. You know what I mean? I also don't have confidence in the fact that he went from national leader to just being a huge part of the party that in the past 8 years has economically run Nigeria to the ground. And
you mean the party run Nigeria to the ground? Or you meant Tinubu run Nigeria?
No, the party
right, okay.
He's been a part of. So the party that he's been a part of and played a huge role in has run Nigeria to the ground. So I don't necessarily have confidence, but
is that in...
anyone wants to be proven wrong.
But is that the party's fault? Is that not, like, if we're going to look at the currency, are you not going to look at the Central Bank of Nigeria?
Yeah.
Is that not where you're supposed to look?
But that's also still tied to the presidency, if we're being very honest. You know,
because he appointed him?
There we go. I mean, all of these things are completely intertwined, and it's just been, we've had terrible policies over the past 8 years, and Nigeria has...
And then Buhari making himself petroleum minister as well.
Thank you. We had a president that made himself Minister of Petroleum, and then we get told that pipelines that are 4 kilometers long, that have been around for how many years, that you're only just discovering them. Like, it's that thing of continuously taking Nigerians for fools and gaslighting Nigerians to the point where you actually have to question your sanity and say, is there something wrong with me that I'm seeing all of this evidence in front of me to show XYZ, but I'm being told ABC over and over again? It does get, it's very concerning, because I think that's also what's happened to a lot of people who have become politically brainwashed into thinking that Nigeria can't get better. So when someone says Emi Lokan and they mean Emi Lokan, you better accept that's Emi Lokan. And this is the issue that we have in Nigeria today, because I would say it's sort of a slave mentality that a lot of people have adopted into thinking that it is what it is, put up with it. And if you want, you know, blah, 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 come back in 8 years' time or in 4 years' time, but you come back in 4 years' time or 8 years' time and it's still the same thing. Look at...
I think my issue is that people are waiting instead of acting. Like, at the end of the day, I'll just give an example. If you're an entrepreneur, right, and you know that it's going to take patience for you to get to where you're trying to go as an entrepreneur, you're not going to wait to get there. You're going to take actionable steps every day to achieve your goal, right? So people are waiting for elections, and that's the wrong attitude. People need to be reading up on this stuff. People need to be researching this stuff. People need to be taking action.
But then the question...
educating the masses. Go on.
You do all of this, and what exactly is the outcome, right? And I say that not because I don't believe it works. I'm with you on that 100%. But a lot of people feel as though you speak up, you're in trouble. You do X, Y happens. And
I don't know. I think media is influential. Media is inspirational. You know, Arise has done a great job of showcasing everybody's perspective. You know, we need more people in media that are not just, you know, singing Afrobeats and doing, like, which is great. I love Afrobeats. I love all that stuff. But, like, let's have more people doing more things. I look at America, right? There's this idea that in America or in the West that you will get your comeuppance for bad behavior. I'll give you examples of Donald Trump, Andrew Tate, Kevin Samuels, 6ix9ine, all of these people, all these years of their tyranny, right?
Yeah.
And look at them. They got their comeuppance, and I know that sounds terrible, with Kevin Samuels, soul rest in peace. But I'm just saying that, like, there's an energy or a way that you will see justice serve, right? But I just feel like Nigeria is not in that energy space. Nigerians as a collective seem to just sort of have this loss of hope and sort of like, people are not fighting for what they believe in. They're just sort of like
environment dependent. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
Like, I think in Nigeria, there's a lot of fear for the system. And when I say fear, it's not that people, look, there are many people that...
The military era, we're just called, like, literally the Biafra War. So we have all these examples of, I understand it. It's like war is not that far away for us.
Exactly. War is...
Military era is not that far away for us. People have seen the violence and nobody wants it. Exactly. We've got freedom. I get that.
And, when little things happen, like, for example, the NSAS protests, and when the military came to the toll gate and shot at innocent protesters, you realize that a lot of people are going to look at that and say, what's the point in fighting for Nigeria when they're never...
Why should I die?
When they're never going to let me fight for Nigeria, It's, and it's very disheartening. So until we can... And this is the issue as well, because for us to be able to fix the systems, we also need to be able to have leaders that are willing to fix the systems, because the Nigerian public are not the ones sitting on the inside in the National Assembly and the House of Representatives where all these laws are written. You can only do as much as you can from the outside, writing to your local government chairman or chairwoman, all of those little things. But you need enough good people on the inside too to be able to change the system, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the other issue that we have in Nigeria, because the system on the inside is so corrupted that for us to get to a point where we have enough good people on the inside is going to take a while. And I think that's why a lot of people have taken a step back with these elections, because people just wanted more good people in government. People that they felt, and it's not to say that they're going to get in and they're going to be amazing, no. But if you've had certain people in office and for years and years they've proven that they can't do the job, you're going to go for the option that you don't know whether they can do the job or can't do the job yet, but you'd rather give a chance to that person than the person has failed you for so long. But when you're continuously forced with that failure to be on you, when that failure is forced on you for so long and you can't get away from it, even with your vote, it will make you lose hope in a society like this.
I hear that. I think like this election has also shone a light on the whole PVC, registration process. The PVC makes no sense to me. Yeah. It should not even exist. We have a national insurance number. We have NIN. What's that for? National identity number, right? Yeah. We have our BVN. This is my point when it comes to that, right? There's only one body that benefits from the PVC, and that's INEC.
Absolutely.
There's only one body that's accountable for the PVC, and that's INEC. Absolutely. If you change it to the NIN or even the BVN, every system in the country is accountable to that, right? And so when you have more government agencies that are vigilant and watching, those numbers or those identity systems, there's less opportunity for compromise. Because if there's an issue in one area, there's an issue in all areas, and nobody's going to stand with that. Yeah. So I think they should render the PVC obsolete. I think it should not even exist anymore.
I think that's another way to frustrate Nigerians. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, because we've heard about them not giving Igbos their PVCs. We've seen videos, which some of these videos are not, verified, but we've seen videos of like PVCs being thrown out, and we've seen all these things. But like now, if everybody that has a Nigerian passport or even a mobile phone has an NIN number.
Exactly.
So why are we not using our NIN? And when more systems of governance are in the government, or more government agencies are accountable to that number, there's more accountability around it, and there's less opportunity for compromise. And there's no reason that with our NIN we shouldn't be able to register to vote online. Because if we're protected with the NIN, if we're protected with the NIN, then it's not easy for a hacker to come and compromise my NIN, when that means they kind of compromise the whole system. No. So I should be able to register online, and I should, maybe even vote online with my NIN. Yeah, I want to hear your take on that.
I'm 100% with you. I've always said the PVC itself, what's the entire point when we have BVNs and we have NINs? What is the NIN then for? And this is another issue with the NIN. You said that to get a new passport and whatever, everyone has to have an NIN, right? People go, you give them the NIN slip, and then I'm sure there are many people like me who do not have their actual NIN cards. And we keep doing this in Nigeria. We set up these things, but we set it up in a way where the system frustrates people. And it just seems as though nothing is completely functioning as it should do. There is no point in a PVC when we have NINs. You should be able to go to the polling unit with your NIN, give them your NIN, put in your votes, and leave. It should be that simple. In fact, we should be at a point now where we're able to vote online. From the comfort of your home, you can log onto a system on election day, you can put in your NIN, you have to go through some other security questions to prove that it's you. So whether you're sitting at home in Lagos or you're sitting at home in London, you can vote as a Nigerian citizen.
But I don't know. Does any country vote online? Is there any country that's doing that?
I could be wrong, but I could be wrong. But I thought there was a channel for that in the UK. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I don't know about that. Because the thing about voting online, that process is they're hackers, man. Hackers. The thing about hackers is you really don't know what systems.
There's an issue everywhere.
What new inventions they use to penetrate systems.
But I hear you everywhere. You know what I mean? Like if we move elections to being 100% electronic, we're going to have issues with hackers. Even in this small one that we did in Nigeria, they came out to say that the system was hacked. Do you know what I mean? So we're going to encounter these issues everywhere. It's about how do you make sure you have a stronger system. So even if you are hacked, you're able to have control over the system that you've built and you've developed. And I mean, I'm just looking ahead now into the future. Elections in 9 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 12 years' time. How do we want our elections to look? We have to be able to make this process easier than the current process is. I mean, it's so easy for anyone to go up to a ballot box and snatch that ballot box on election day. You have policemen that are just standing there doing nothing because they're not armed or they don't have enough security. They need backup and they need enforcement. So we have all of these issues that arise, and we have to be able to make our elections as electronic as we possibly can, so that even if you're going to a polling unit and you're voting, the only voting that you're doing is on an electronic system. We do not need to still be using papers to cast.
Look, I mean, I the first time I voted was in America in 2008, and we were using electronic systems, since then, right? So yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I do think, I think you're right. At the end of the day, we're online. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to vote online, and we just have to find out the system that is conducive to that, the system that allows us to make it impenetrable, and also stop looking to the problem with our tech. Also, is that as much as yes, we do have a booming tech industry, there's a lot of looking to India to develop our technology. So when we're looking to other countries, that's allowing for opportunity for to compromise the elections.
Exactly. Exactly. It's very problematic, and 4 years is quite a long time to prepare. And between 2019 and 2023, that's the time that the INEC had. And when you come out and you give voters the confidence that INEC gave to Nigerian voters, yet on election day, you do the exact opposite. And then you go and announce the winner of the elections at 4 a.m, like a thief in the night. Like, there was just so much that just came across as, you can see why people would see that and say it's dodgy or it looks dodgy. And we have to be able to clean up our systems. It's impossible that we used electronic voting to some degree in these elections, and we still ended up with the sorts of outcomes that we had, where ballot boxes were being stolen, this and that. We shouldn't still be talking about these things.
I think for us to see the change that we want to see, it's going to be 10, 20, 30 years from now. It's going to be when this generation, when like our generation that don't know anything other than being online, when, you know, we don't know anything other than that. So to us, it doesn't make sense to even walk into a polling unit. It doesn't make sense. So that's when we're going to start seeing, you know, voting from the comfort of your home, right? We're going to start seeing those things. Facial recognition. There's all these things. To be honest, there's just so many systems with facial recognition, with location, geolocation spotting, with fingerprints. There's so many ways you could actually prevent a compromise with hackers, right? And we should be able to see our votes in real time. So we'll know that from the cutoff point of voting, we will know exactly who won. But the problem is, but I think there's a similar issue going on in the West in that when it comes in terms of lobbying, is that the people that have the power to change the system are not going to change the system because they're benefiting off of it.
Yeah.
So what is so I guess like this is a question for a lawyer, and if you're a lawyer, please respond. What is a system that can be created or that can be implemented legally that allows some loopholes for the people to be able to make decisions on some of these? And is that a way to vote? Is that a way for politics in the future, right? That, okay, we should be able to veto as people. We log on somewhere online and we veto this, right? Because this is not what the people want. That's true democracy, if you ask me.
It can even be as simple as, you know, even with like change.org, right? You see how in the UK people go on change.org and they put in these petitions and it's like, we need X amount of signatures in order for the Houses of Parliament to be able to say X, Y, Z. It should be, I mean, again, a question for a lawyer, like, can't it be as simple as that? You know what I mean? Where the voice of Nigerians is valued enough that even an existing platform like change.org can be used countrywide to effect certain changes.
Well, I have an issue with, again, I go back to me having an issue with having, you know, bodies from other governments.
Yeah, like our own.
Right. We should build our own. Yeah, I think we should build our own because of the way that geopolitics is working right now, you really have to look within your own country to develop these systems. You can't rely on another country for some of these things. Right.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that. One thing I would like to say is, you know, don't fall into the tribalism and ethnic bigotry trap to anyone who's watching and listening to this. Because I don't believe that the majority of Nigerians are tribalistic. I believe it's actually just very, very few. But this is an issue that can become a lot larger than us if we are not careful, and we don't want a repeat of certain things. No one wants a repeat of the Nigerian civil war. No one wants to see a genocide happening in this country, and everyone should be able to look, wherever you live and you pay taxes and you are residents, you have the right to live and vote there. Whether you are Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, Efik, whatever you are, wherever you're paying taxes and working, you have the right to vote there. Don't fall into the trap. We are one country. We've been one country. We decided in 1960 when we were becoming independent, we decided to stay as one nation, right? So at the end of the day, we have to be able to live as one country, and politicians can try and feed into breaking that up or trying to put ideas into people's heads, but be smarter than that. That's all I would say. Be a lot smarter than that, because Nigeria is very mixed with different ethnicities, and it's a very dangerous road to take if we do sink down that tribalism hole any deeper than we already have.
I absolutely agree. I think, you know, tribalism, inequality is inequality, and it just really opened my eyes this election to the extent to which Igbos are really marginalized in the country. And to me, it's worse when it's coming from in your own homeland. It's not like, you know, all these other like transplant countries like America that, you know, you're not even from here anyway, right? Yeah. But this is like your homeland.
Yeah.
So like, where else are you supposed to go?
Exactly. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And trust me,
horrific.
Some of you may like the idea of Nigeria splitting up, but you will not like it once that happens.
No, we don't want that. I know some people want it, and I understand that, but I think that as a population, we need to defend and protect the Igbos. I do not condone any of this tribalism. It's disgusting to me, and yeah, I agree with you on that.
Absolutely. So yeah, those are my last words.
All right. Thank you for coming on. Thank you so much
for having me. This was great.
All right. I hope you liked that. Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all the above. You're watching OVG Africa. Make sure you follow us on all socials at OVG Africa. Check us out on all socials, and I'll see you in the next one. A peace.